Hello, this is our presentation of UML Design Sequence by Caleb Johnson and Christopher Hemming. What is a UML design sequence? A UML design sequence is a diagram that models the flow of logic, shows the interaction between objects in sequential order, shows the transition of requirements to higher levels of refinement. The design sequence is not strictly meant for developers. It's actually a useful tool for communicating for individuals who do not truly understand programming in any sense. It's easy for them to follow and to understand where the program is going. The way that we create it is we use lines and arrows to indicate the flow of the direction of the flow of information. We use boxes with borders to indicate the function or class with the name in the middle. Here's a diagram that we created. It gets a file with a file name, and then it retrieves the file, and then it shows the flow of that file name coming back to get the file. And then we use the get file function to come back and bring the file for proper use.
Some of the pros of using UML design sequences include things like the showing of sequences in a very high level view. This provides a very high level of things like the cases in the systems, solutions, or any other type of application that you would like to display. These models, as discussed previously, are very easy to understand, which means that even someone who is a non-programmer can basically understand what you're trying to get through, allowing them to see the logic behind the system. This also fixes a lot of the communication gaps between different developers, because if you have one developer working on a system and another developer working on a different system, you're able to see the interaction very easily with the UML design sequence because you can see all the logic behind any of the concepts, which brings us into the last perk, which is that it shows the proof of the concepts. This means that you know what's happening inside of your diagram and you know what's going to be happening in your system. Some of the cons, however, for using UML design sequence include things like the fact that it is a very high and complex system to use. Now, for a programmer, it might not be too hard. However, if you're just barely getting started into UML design, it can be very complex and complicated to begin. Things also such as the fact that it's not always informal notation, which means that you don't necessarily need to have a UML design sequence for any of your projects, just because it is a very complex and large system that you need to get used to before you can really start to use it. Also, for UML design sequences, because they can be very large and very complex, this means that it can be very time-consuming to create, which means that it's not the best to communicate with what the systems will do. Sometimes you will have tools that sometimes you will not be able to communicate exactly what the systems do on the inside because you could be missing things such as variables that you would like to communicate through to stakeholders. This means that you're not always displaying all the information that you would like to. In the recommendation for UML design sequence, usually you would like to use this whenever you want to observe the behavior of multiple objects, see how they collaborate between each other, watch their interaction, see anything that they pass between each other. Also, what you would like to use is whenever you want to find alternatives to sequences in the objects. If you would like to find solutions, pass in new variables, pass variables to different types of classes, or change anything inside of your diagram, this is usually when you would like to use the UML sequence. This also helps because it shows the logical view of the sequence, which means that you basically have a map planning or a blueprint of your diagram. Thank you for listening to Caleb Johnson and Christopher Hemming's solution to UML Design Sequence. Here's our works cited.